Welcome back to the Snowpoint Cast. Today we're going to be going over a deck from 2014 states called Blastoise. Really strong deck from this format. I got first at Georgia Regionals. This is actually that list. It's Daniel Altavilla's list, minus one card plus another card, because in my opinion, the card that he played was strictly wrong over this other card, but we'll get into that in a second. But yeah, let's get right into it. So, 2 Keldeo EX. You play 2, you got 170 HP on that bad boy, grass weakness, 2 retreat, and an ability and an attack. So the ability and the attack are both really good. The ability is Russian, so once during your turn, if it's on your bench, you can just put it active, switch it with your active Pokemon, which is really clutch. Just being able to always attack with it is nice, depending on the situation, and being able to get out of potential lasers, sleep, or poison is really good too. And then Secret Sword is its attack, so it is 50 plus 20 for each water energy attached to this Pokemon. It's really good because Blastoise accelerates waters, so you just are able to attach as many as you want and then hit for massive damage. If you have 6 waters on there, you're hitting for 170, and that kills a lot of EX Pokemon in this format. And then hitting 7 waters isn't that hard either. And if you hit 7, you hit 190, which kills every EX in the format. So yeah, really strong card. It's got a ton of power and utility. And then the other EX Pokemon you play is Black Kyeurem EX. So it's got 180 HP, it's a little beefier. 3 retreat, which is pretty fat, a dragon weakness, and 2 attacks. So the first attack for 3 colorless is Slash. Slash kind of seems bad, but there's a lot of situations where Slash is really good. 60 does really well with Keldeo's numbers. So you Slash for 60, and then a Secret Sword with 3 waters knocks out a 170 HP Pokemon. So that's good if you can't get the knockout right away. And, you know, sometimes just hitting for 60 can be good too. Like, usually you want a Black Ballista, but sometimes you just have to hit for 60 if you don't hit the cards that you need. But Black Ballista is the main reason we play this card. So for Water, Lightning, Colorless, it is 200, and then you discard 3 energy attached to this Pokemon. So usually the other energy you're going to discard is a water. So you discard 3 waters, and then you do 200, which blows up every EX, even if they have an Eviolite on them. So it's just massive damage, and it's a great attacker in this deck. You play 1 Baby Black Kyeurem as well. Baby Black Kyeurem is mainly for safeguarders, but sometimes it's good just to like force your opponent to play a 7 prize game as well. It's a pretty decent attacker, so it's got 130 HP, 2 retreat, it's weak to dragon as well, 2 attacks, dual claw for a lightning and a colorless, flip 2 coins. This attack does 20 damage times the number of heads, trash attack, but flash freeze is okay. So for a water, a lightning, and a double colorless, it does 100, and then discard an energy attached to this Pokemon. So that kills stuff like Suicune and Sigilyph, and like you're just not worried about having to attack with a Blastoise in that situation, because that's really not what you want to do if you're up against a safeguarder. This will play a fat Blastoise line. So 4 Squirtle. This is the other card that you play instead of Daniel played a Suicune in his list as this safeguard Suicune, which is like, okay, it's like a fine card, but in my opinion, if you're not playing 4 Squirtle on a Blastoise deck, it's just really bad, because you have to hit Blastoise to have the deck function, to have the deck do what you want to do. And when you only play 3 Squirtle, it just like, your odds of hitting that turn 1 Squirtle go down by that much %. And when it's so important in the deck, just being able to hit that Squirtle turn 1 is really important. So I cut the Suicune for a 4th Squirtle, and I believe that that's the correct call. Feel free to put the Suicune back in if you think you can survive with 3 Squirtle, but I really like being able to accelerate with Blastoise. I like when my deck does what I wanted to do. So Squirtle's great. It's got 60 HP, a single retreat, grass weakness. Shell Shield is an awesome ability. So as long as this Pokemon is on your bench, prevent all damage done to this Pokemon by attacks, both yours and your opponent's. So that's great, because there's a ton of sniping in this format. Landorus EX hits a bench Pokemon for 30. So if it didn't have Shell Shield, you could get hit for 30, and then if you miss the Blastoise, it gets hit for 30 again, and then it's dead, but that's not an issue because you got Shell Shield. Kyram, Plasma Kyurem is also kind of an issue. For a water and a colorless, it attacks 30 to the active and 30 to the bench. So that kind of would be a threat as well, but it's not a threat anymore, because Shell Shield, it's so good at protecting your Squirtles. And there's just like so much that Shell Shield does against, like, prevents you from getting sniped out, and like it just makes your early game really consistent, because you can just bench a Squirtle and be like, I'm not worried about the Squirtle dying to a snipe, which is really nice. Water Splash, I guess we're gonna talk about Water Splash for a sec. For water colorless, it does 10, flip a coin of heads, it does 20 more. You know, basic Pokemon attack, the classic. So you play a Wartortle. This is mainly for item lock, but also because you play level ball. So if you do miss that Candy Blastoise turn off of a tropical beach, you at least have an option. You can evolve into Wartortle and then just hit the Blastoise next turn. But yeah, having one in there is nice for item lock as well. You never know when you're gonna happen to go up against a Gardevoir Accelerator deck. That was a deck that existed in this format. Not Gardevoir. Got the tell. But yeah, so for one, it's got 80 HP, 2 retreat, a grass weakness, and then for one, it's got withdraw. Withdraw is actually okay. So for one, flip a coin. If heads, prevent all damage done to this Pokemon by attacks during your opponent's next turn. So, you know, keeps you safe for a turn if you're in a clinch spot and you need to not get hit for a turn. Waterfall 3 for 60. You know, meh. Classic stage 1 and basic attacks are all just like meh. But you play 3 Blastoise. So this is the main accelerator of the deck. It's the biggest support Pokemon. So it's got 140 HP, which is pretty fat. 4 retreat is a tanky boy. It's a big old tank. And then Deluge is the ability that you like play it for. So Deluge, as often as you like during your turn, before you attack, you can attach a water energy card from your hand to one of your Pokemon, which is busted. Like so good because it lets you go Keldeo EX 7 energy out of nowhere. If you find the energies, and you know, when you get into the late game, finding energies is really easy because you've played so many Junipers and discarded so many cards that they're probably in your discard or still in your deck. So you draw them. But yeah, Deluge is great. It lets you use your 2 main EX attackers, and hitting a Blastoise is the function of the deck. As soon as you hit Blastoise, your deck's actually working. It has a decent attack too. So for 4 colorless, Hydro Pump does 60 plus 10 more for each water energy attached to this Pokemon. And that can be good, right? Like if you have 2 Blastoise set up, sometimes Hydro Pumping instead of attacking with Black Kyeurem can be good, depending on like what you're playing against. But yeah, Blastoise is great. So you also play a 1/1 Electrode. I'll talk about the Voltorb for just a second. The only thing that's really important is the HP. So 60, you're able to net it with a level ball. You actually can't use the attack because you play Lightnings. So roll out for 2, it does 20. Single retreat, weakness to fighting. But you play it for the Electrode. The Electrode has magnetic draw. So 90 HP, it's able to be searched with level ball as well, which is really nice. Single retreat, which is cool too. But magnetic draw is great. It's one of the reasons that this deck is N resistant. So N in the late game, you know, shuffles you down to 1 or 2 cards, and that's just really bad. You can't afford that. And magnetic draw just keeps you in the game because oftentimes you need to hit like resources in the late game. Like let's say you attack with a Black Kyeurem EX, you kill something. You need to hit a superior energy retrieval most of the time if you're trying to attack again with that Black Kyeurem. And Electrode just makes you N resistant. It's a good support Pokemon too. Like if you hit it early, there are a lot of times where your hand gets down to like lower than 4 cards, so you can draw off of it as well. But yeah, it's mainly there as an N resistant Pokemon. So you play 4 Candy as well. Just consistency, right? Like as soon as you hit Candy Blastoise, your deck's working. And it just like makes your deck consistent. You play 4. You could get by playing 3, but I don't like that because there's like a lot of decks in this format that are a lot faster than Blastoise because they're not playing a stage 2. Like Plasma and Big Basics Raichu Garb and like Virizion Genesect, like they're all just like really fast. And especially Plasma, and if you like can't get that Blastoise off, it just means that they're going to start taking prizes on you before you take prizes on them. And at that point, you're just losing the game. So 4 Candy just keeps you consistent. You play 4 Superior Energy Retrieval as well. So Superior Energy Retrieval, discard 2 cards from your hand, and then put 4 basic energy from your discard pile back into your hand. So really solid card. Great for getting back your Lightnings and your Waters. Also really good for just getting back a ton of Waters and putting them on a Keldeo. But yeah, Superior, it's the reason that Black Kyeurem can be played in the deck because you discard like 3 energy every time you Black Ballista. Being able to get them back just means that you can actually play Black Kyeurem legitimately. Okay, so you play 3 Ultra Ball, which seems kind of suspect, but it's not, and I'll explain why in a second. So 3 Ultra Ball, discard 2 cards from your hand, and then search your deck for Pokemon and put it in your hand. So discarding is not that big of a deal because, like I was saying, you do play those Superior Energy Retrieval to get those energies back if you have to discard energies. But they're there to find Blastoise. Ultra Balls always find a Blastoise, and often if you see that in the early game, it's going to be your search for a Blastoise. So you play 2 Pokemon Catcher as well. Pokemon Catcher is pretty important in a couple matchups. One of them being Plasma. So Plasma plays a Palkia that hits your Black Kyeurem EX for Dragon Weakness, and then retreats itself back to the bench. And if you don't have a way to handle that, it can be really rough because you can't Black Ballista them. you can't Keldeo them because then they'll Deoxys you. And then at that point, you don't really have any valid attacks. So being able to Catcher and bring up something on the bench that's threatening is really good. Sometimes Catcher can be great in the mirror too. Like if you're playing another Blastoise player and they only have a Blastoise, if you're able to Catcher that Blastoise, oftentimes that means the game because you're able to take those prizes when your opponent isn't taking prizes. It is on a flip though, so, you know, not amazing, but still necessary because of, you know, how the format is. So this is why you don't play 4 Ultra Ball. You play a Heavy Ball as well. So Heavy Ball also searches Blastoise, searches for a Pokemon with 3 retreat or more. So it finds both of your Black Kyurems, the EX and the regular, and Blastoise. So it has 6 outs in the deck to search, which is a decent amount of outs. Finding a Black Kyurem is really nice. Sometimes you just like can't afford the discard with an Ultra Ball, so being able to Skyla for a Heavy Ball is really cool. You also play a Level Ball. Level Ball is great at finding Voltorb, Electrode, Squirtle, and Wartortle. Most of the time, you're going to be scaling for a Level Ball to find a Squirtle turn 1 if you have that option and don't have a Squirtle. But it's nice. It just searches a fair amount of things in the deck as well. It keeps you consistent. Playing Pokemon Search, especially when you play 4 Skyla, playing Pokemon Search that doesn't discard is really good hand dependent because there are some hands where you're like, wow, all I have is like an Ultra Ball, 2 superior energy retrievals, a Squirtle, and like a Black Kyeurem, and like I don't want to discard any of that. So being able to just Skyla for a straight search can be really good. You play Super Rod as well. Super Rod is great Pokemon consistency. So like if someone kills your Electrode, Virizion Genesect can often do that if they want to. So if they kill your Electrode, it just means that you're late game and vulnerable. Being able to Super Rod that back is really good. Sometimes your Junipers are really bad. Like you play Juniper, discard your hand, draw 7. And being able to shuffle those Pokemon and energy cards back into your deck, it did just, you know, when you play 4 Juniper, sometimes you just have really crap hands. Where like, wow, I really don't want to discard this hand, but I have to. And being able to play Pokemon Recovery to get that back is pretty essential. They play Tool Scrapper as well. Tool Scrapper's a counter against Garbodor, really. You play 1 for the Garb matchup. And honestly, I feel like 1 is kind of suspect. I feel like 2 made it like, you know, slightly positive for Blastoise, probably like a 60-40. But with 1, it's kind of a suspect matchup. It's probably closer to even. And it's nice to discard Muscle Bands too. Like Muscle Band's another really good card in this format. So being able to Tool Scrapper depending on what your opponent's playing. Oh, and G-Booster. G-Booster Genesect. Being able to discard that is really important as well. Play a Letter as well. Letter's great because you can search your deck for up to 2 basic energy cards and then reveal them, put them in your hand. So it lets you find like Lightning, Water. So you have that Lightning attached this turn, and then next turn if you hit the Blastoise, you Deluge, and if you don't, at least you have the Water. So it's mainly for finding the Lightnings because Black Kyeurem really can't attack without a Lightning, and it is one of your main attackers. It's one of your 2 attackers, so being able to be consistent with that is really good. You play a Dowsing Machine as well. Dowsing Machine's your ace spec. Discard 2 cards from your hand, and then put a trainer card from your discard pile in your hand. So it gets all these trainer cards, but also gets your stadiums and supporters as well. So it keeps you consistent. And sometimes finding a 3rd catcher is really important in a game. 2nd Tool Scrapper, if you're playing against a Garbodor deck, can be really good. 5th Superior Energy Retrieval can be really good as well. Kind of just like depends on what your discard is, but Dowsing Machine is great. Play 3 Tropical Beach as well. Tropical Beach is a stadium card. It's actually a Worlds promo back in the day, so you're only able to get it if you were good and went to the World Championships or had a fair amount of money because it was a pretty expensive card. So Tropical Beach says once during each player's turn, that player may draw cards until they have 7 cards in their hand, and then your turn ends. So on your first turn, there's nothing you can really do. Like you can attach a Lightning to a Black Kyeurem, but there's nothing you can attack with that you want to attack with. So being able to just go find a Tropical Beach, and then I'm gonna draw up to 7, especially when you play cards like Ultra Ball, and like a fair amount of your cards are playable, like Level Ball, Heavy Ball, Professor's Letter. You can just like straight play them. So being able to just play your hand down and then Tropical Beach to hopefully hit that Rare Candy Blastoise combo or Skyla Blastoise combo, or like Skyla Heavy Ball or Rare Candy Skyla to hit the Heavy Ball combo. It just like lets you draw on that turn that you don't care about attacking. And every single game, you're going to have that first turn where you're like, I don't want to do anything. So you Skyla for a beach, and then you have something to do. So, Skyla. You play 4 Skyla. Great supporter card. Again, good at finding beaches. Also really good at finding candy. Like if you have an Ultra Ball or a Heavy Ball or a Blastoise in your hand, and you don't have a candy, but you do have a Skyla, you can just search your candy. And then you hit your turn 2 Blastoise candy. So it's really good at being consistent for that. Finding your beach turn 1, 2. Like if you have part of the combo, but you're like, well, I like have the Squirtle, but I don't have the Rare Candy Blastoise. Being able to find a beach, whittle your hand down as low as you can, and then hopefully refresh it and draw new cards is really nice. So yeah, just really good at being consistent part of the deck. Juniper. So discard your hand, draw 7 cards. Professor Juniper is great. Really consistent card in the format. And like I was saying before, you don't really care what you discard because you play recovery for everything other than, well, even trainer cards, you play Dowsing Machine. So, you know, burning it all to the ground to find your resources usually is not that big of a deal. You play 2 N as well. N is a great card. Each player shuffles their hand into their deck, and then they draw for their prize card. So early game, it's decent consistency. I mean, you're shuffle drawing 6, which is pretty good. And then late game, like I was saying, when you have an Electrode, N doesn't really hurt you. So if you have to put yourself down to 1 or 2 prizes, and then, you know, magnetic draw to hopefully hit something, it's not great, but it's better than what your opponent is probably doing, which is getting end and then not drawing anything. So it's good in the late game to be able to hit your opponent with that as well. We play a Colorist as well. Colorist, shuffle your hand into your deck and then draw for the amount of bench Pokemon. You often have a pretty fat bench. Usually have like a Black Kyeurem or a Keldeo attacking. You have the other one on the bench, and then you have a Squirtle and an Electrode is usually what you have. So like that's like 3 Pokemon, and usually you want a second Squirtle too, because if your opponent is ever able to like take out your Blastoise, they hit a catcher heads or like a red signal knockout. If you don't have a Squirtle down, it means that you're not going to be deluging next turn. So having that bench Squirtle is important as well. So you just have like a lot of bench fill in this deck. Okay, so we're going to get to the energy cards. They play 3 Lightning. Lightning is just for Black Kyeurem and Baby Black Kyeurem. Keeps you consistent. Yeah, I mean, you can attack with Electrode if you really want to with Lightnings, but it's pretty much just for Black Kyeurem. And you play 3 because with a letter and 3 is like fine. You usually hit it, and you're drawing so many cards that it's usually not that big of a deal. And again, as soon as you have like 1 in your discard, you can just superior it, and then you go like, you Black Ballisted 3 Waters. Even if your Black Kyeurem dies, as long as you hit a superior, if it's in your discard, you can just take it in 3 Waters, and then all of a sudden you're Black Ballisting again. Okay, so you play 9 Water Energy. Water is really important for Keldeo, so being able to hit that 6 or 7 energy on a Keldeo if you need to is really good, but also just having a bunch of energy to be able to Black Ballista is really nice as well. Like, you need to find 3 every time that you attack. So, you know, whether that's a superior energy retrieval to bring 3 back, or if you have 1 in a Professor's Letter, if you have 2 left in your deck, that also lets you hit 3. So just playing the 9 waters is good because it keeps your waters consistent. Deluge is really important. So being able to be consistent with whether you want to attack with a Keldeo or a Black Kyeurem is really nice, and 9 waters just lets you do that. Okay, so this has been Blastoise from 2014 States. If you have any questions about the deck, leave them in the comments below, and I'll do my best to get to them. But yeah, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.